Welcome to KMUZ Theatre Talk. I'm your host, Ed Shopes. KMUZ Theatre Talk comes your way the first and third Friday of every month with news and in-depth interviews about auditions and performances of plays and musicals running at theaters throughout the Mid-Willamette Valley. Today we're having a conversation with Corban University Theater professor Tamara McGinnis about Corban's upcoming production of Good Wives, a play based on Louisa May Alcott's follow-up to her novel Little Women. I learned a lot in this interview, and you will too, including how most every film adaptation of Alcott's Little Women also includes the story of good wives, as do many printed versions of Alcott's work. Tamara and I also talked about how college theater program teachers like her are now working with a new challenge, teaching students who are more familiar communicating through short-form social media and not so experienced with the theater's longer-form storytelling and extended conversations among characters. Tamara joins me shortly for that conversation, but first, let's dive into the KMUZ Theatre Talk calendar for news about auditions and shows happening at your favorite Mid-Willamette Valley theaters. At McMinnville area theaters, playing at Gallery Theater in downtown McMinnville, the award-winning musical Fiddler on the Roof runs through March 2nd. This beloved tale of Tevye the dairyman and his family's struggles in a changing world continues to touch audiences worldwide with its humor, warmth, and honesty. Check out the KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast for my behind-the-curtain interview with director Seth Rennie and lead actor Lance Nutman. Roald Dahl's Willy Wonka with music and lyrics by Leslie Bricusse and Anthony Newley will run on Gallery Theater's main stage May 2nd through 25th. It's directed by Travis and Kalina Morgan. On Gallery Theater's call board, auditions for The Curious Savage by John Patrick and directed by Tanya Nichols happen March 16th and 17th at Gallery. This show runs July 18th through August 3rd. For show information and tickets and to sign up for auditions, go to gallerytheater.org. At the Greater Salem area theaters, on the Bridgetown Conservatory Salem call board, auditions are now open for Make Me a Song, the music of William Finn, directed by Seth Rennie. Rehearsals are March 31st to April 23rd in Salem. Performances are April 24th through 27th at the Verona Studio Theater in Salem and May 1st through 4th in Portland at Bridgetown Musical Theater. Registration is also open for Bridgetown Conservatory's spring term class, He Sang, She Sang, Gender Bending the Broadway Song. Classes for teen and adult actors run every Saturday from March 29th through May 17th at Bridgetown's downtown Salem studio. See the Bridgetown Salem Facebook page and bridgetownconservatory.org website to sign up for triple threat classes and auditions and for show information and tickets. Children's Educational Theater in Salem is at cetsalem.org. And if you want to register a student for CET's popular 2025 summer program, you should sign up now at cetsalem.org and grab a slot before they're gone. Tuition is due on May 1st, and classes start June 23rd and run through July 26th. Coming to Kaiser Homegrown Theater, Drinking Habits, a comedy by Tom Smith and directed by Jeff Minden, runs April 11th through 27th. For show information and tickets, go to kaiserhomegrowntheater.org and their Facebook page. At Pinnacle Theater in Salem, the first show of Pinnacle's 2025 season, the classic comedy Arsenic and Old Lace, closes February 22nd. Check out the KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast interview with director Scott Ramp and actors from the show. And March 21st through April 12th, Pinnacle Theater presents Big Fish, a beautiful musical based on the celebrated novel and film. It tells the heartwarming story of Edward Bloom, a traveling salesman with larger-than-life stories, and his son, Will, who's determined to uncover the truth behind his father's epic tales. It's directed by Jill Sorensen. On the Pinnacle Theater call board, director Jeff Sanders will hold auditions March 1st for The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams. The show runs May 9th through 31st. Director Debbie Neal will hold auditions April 25th for Black Comedy by Peter Schaefer. That show runs June 27th through July 19th. And Joe Dodge's acting workshop for adults 18 and older meets on Saturdays at Pinnacle Theater's rehearsal studio in downtown Salem. See the pinnacletheater.org website and Facebook page for tickets, audition information, and to sign up for Joe's acting workshops. The Salem Playhouse is an acting school for teens and adults. Classes for students in 8th through 12th grades are Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays at 4 to 6 p.m., and adult classes are Thursday evening from 7 to 11 p.m. and Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. Go to thesalemplayhouse.com and click on the Classes tab for details and to sign up for classes. Theater 33 will hold its 2025 Summer New Plays Festival at Willamette University in Salem, and Theater 33 will soon announce its summer festival lineup and will bring that news to you as soon as we hear more. Watch theater33.org and their Facebook page for details. At the Staten and Silverton area theaters, Brush Creek Playhouse is in Silverton, and the Brush Creek Players celebrate bringing 50 years of shows to their Little Red Schoolhouse stage with a 14-production season, the most in their long history. The Schoolmarms in Danger closes with a matinee on February 22nd. It's directed by Norman Gouveia. And on the Brush Creek Playhouse call board, the final auditions for David H. McDonald's Much to Do About Notices happen February 24th at 6:30 p.m. at the Playhouse on Silverton Road. The show runs April 4th through 20th and is directed by Rayanna O'Connor and Russell Oliveira Jr. Go to brushcreekplayhouse.com and Facebook for show, ticket, and audition information. Playing at Spotlight Community Theater in downtown Staten is a new musical adaptation of J.M. Barrie's classic story of Peter Pan, and it closes February 22nd at Spotlight. That's followed March 7th through 9th by their Act on Radio production of 2 episodes from the old Burns and Allen show, Gracie Takes Up Crime Solving and Income Tax Problems. The cast recreates this pair of classic radio programs the original way they aired, with sound effects, ads, and more. On Spotlight Community Theater's call board, director Franca Hernandez is holding open auditions at 1 p.m. March 1st at the Spotlight Community Theater for Enchanted April, a romantic comedy set in an Italian villa. This show runs April 24th through May 4th. For show information, tickets, and audition details, go to spotlightct.com and Facebook. At the Albany and Corvallis area theaters, Ride the Cyclone continues through March 15th at Albany Civic Theater. In this hilarious and outlandish story, the lives of 6 teenagers from a Canadian chamber choir are cut short in a freak roller coaster accident. Stuck in limbo, they meet a mechanical fortune teller who invites each to tell a story good enough to win the chance to return to life. Check out the KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast for my interview with director Lorianne Schmidt and 2 actors about this zany show. On the Albany Civic Theater call board, auditions are February 24th through 26th for And Then There Were None, the Agatha Christie classic murder mystery directed by Ken Long. For show information, tickets, and audition details, go to albanycivic.org and Facebook. At the Majestic Theater in downtown Corvallis, Amadeus by Peter Schaefer runs March 7th through 16th. This story of a clash of envy versus genius between established composer Antonio Salieri and an uber-talented young upstart named Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart is directed by Riley Lucas. And that's followed March 22nd by the Majestic 8 10-minute play festival, a selection of short works by Oregon and Washington playwrights directed by Lee Matthews Bach and Kathy O'Brien. On the Majestic Theater call board, open auditions for a Reader's Theater production of Becky, Nurse of Salem by Sarah Rule are March 17th and 18th at the Majestic Theater. It's directed by Robert Leff. This contemporary ensemble comedy centers on an ordinary but strong-willed grandmother just trying to get by. She's also the great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Rebecca Nurse, who was infamously executed for witchcraft in 1692. Desperate to raise her troubled teenage granddaughter right and hoping to hook up with an old flame, Becky asks a local witch for help. But those spells and potions don't work out exactly as planned. Parts are available for 7 actors, and the Readers Theater show runs April 26th and 27th. For show information, tickets, and audition details, go to majestic.org and Facebook. This summer's annual musical by the Mid-Valley Musical Theater in Albany is Walt Disney's Tarzan, the Musical, with music by Phil Collins. Performances are August 7th through 16th. Audition information and ticket details are coming soon. For show information, tickets, and those audition details, go to mvmtheater.org and Facebook. At the Mid-Valley Colleges and Universities, on the Chemeketa Community College Call Board in Salem, Chemeketa's Theater Under the Stars will present its second summer musical July 29th through August 7th at the Jerry Frank Amphitheater in Salem's Riverfront Park. The show is Disney's Mary Poppins, and it's directed by Stephen Munshaw and choreographed by Christopher Dean. Auditions are coming right up on March 1st, 2nd, and 8th, with callbacks on March 9th. For audition information, email smunshaw@chemeketa.edu. That's SMUNSHAW @chemeketa.edu, or call 503-836-2266. That's 503-836-2266. Corban University in East Salem is at corban.edu/theater-arts. Good Wives, Peter Clapham's stage adaptation of Louisa May Alcott's follow-up novel to Little Women, runs March 6th through 15th at Corban U. Director Tamara McGinnis joins me today on KMUZ Theatre Talk for a preview conversation about the show. And for show information and tickets, go to the corban.edu Theater Arts page or see their Facebook page. And at Western Oregon University in Monmouth, Nora, A Doll's House by playwright Steph Smith runs February 26th through March 8th at the Rice Auditorium at Western University. This modern reframing of the classic drama A Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen is set in 3 different time periods: the fight for women's suffrage, the swinging 60s, and modern day. You can hear more from director Kendra Steenerson and the actors playing the 3 Noras on our KMUZ Theatre Talk podcast. Closing the WOU theater season May 28th through 31st is Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed and Nina Verdalos. It's directed by Risa Fleming. For information on those shows and tickets, go to the wou.edu theater page or see their Facebook page. At Willamette University Theater in Salem, closing February 23rd at Willamette Theater is Far Away, an hour-long futuristic nightmare in 3 short scenes that envisions a world where the promise of violence broods and nothing is to be trusted. And coming to Willamette's Pelton Theater April 11th through 26th is the final show of their season, Bloom, Bloom, Pow, a climate doom comedy inspired by 1950s monster movies and the real-life 2014 crisis in Toledo, Ohio, when the tap water became deadly to use. For show information and tickets, go to wutheater.com or see their Facebook page. At Mid-Valley High Schools, Central High School in Independence is on Facebook and at chsperformingarts.net. Music of the Night, a performing arts fundraiser, cabaret, and auction, happens at Central High on April 25th. Dallas High School is at dhstheater.org and on Facebook at Dallas High School Thespians. Shakespeare's As You Like It is on stage at the Bowman Auditorium, February 27th through March 1st. And at Salem area high schools, McNary High School is on Facebook at Ken Collins Theater. Peter and the Starcatcher is on stage May 14th through 17th at the Ken Collins Theater. And North Salem High School is at nshstheater.com and on Facebook at NSHS Theater. Paragon Springs, Stephen Dietz's vibrant and often funny reimagining of Henrik Ibsen's An Enemy of the People puts the lure of capitalism and the greed of small-town self-interest squarely on trial. Auditions are on March 10th, and the show runs May 1st through 3rd at North Salem High School. Failure, a Love Story by Philip Dawkins comes to the North Salem High Stage May 22nd through 24th. Tuneful songs and a whimsical chorus follow the story of the three Fail sisters, Nellie, Jenny June, and Gertie, as they live out their lives above the family clock repair shop near the Chicago River before their time unexpectedly runs out. It's a magical musical fable where the power of love is far greater than anyone's successes or failures. Auditions for this show are also on March 10th. At South Salem High School, and they're on Facebook and Instagram at Saxon Drama, the spring show at South Salem High is the classic courtroom drama 12 Angry Jurors, running May 15th through 17th. And Sprague High School has Neil Simon's rollicking comedy Rumors on stage February 27th through March 6th. And Sprague's one-act festival happens May 15th through 17th. West Salem High School is at westsalemdrama.com and on Facebook at West Salem Drama Department. West Salem's Thespian Show, An Evening of One Acts, performs March 5th through 8th, and Shakespeare favorite Twelfth Night is coming to the West Salem stage May 1st through 3rd. Twelfth Night is a comedy about a love triangle, requited and unrequited, romantic and familial, filled with illusion, deception, disguises, madness, and the extraordinary things that love will cause us to do and to see. And that's a wrap for today's KMUZ Theater Talk calendar for plays and auditions at your favorite theaters. If your Mid-Willamette Valley Theater has a play or audition coming up that's not on our calendar, please send it our way at kmuztheatertalk@gmail.com. Coming up next is my interview with Tamara McGinnis, theater professor and director of Louisa May Alcott's Good Wives at Corban University. We'll be right back after this. Hi, Ed Shopes here, host of KMUZ Theater Talk. Sorry to interrupt, but I have a favor to ask. I know you love hearing about shows and auditions at your favorite Mid-Valley theaters, or you wouldn't be listening to KMUZ Theater Talk right now. And that's why I'm asking you to go to kmuz.org today and hit the donate button to support KMUZ Theater Talk and your all-volunteer, commercial-free, nonprofit community radio station. Make a one-time donation or become a monthly sustaining donor. Whatever fits your budget, it's up to you. You'll be glad you did, and we'll love you for it. Thanks a million. Now back to today's program. Louisa May Alcott is a very beloved writer, and when she wrote Little Women, she had a hit, and there have been a lot of stage versions of that show done. We've all probably seen one or two, but not too many people know about this stage version because Louisa May Alcott wrote a follow-up to Little Women called Good Wives, and it's being done in the stage version at Corban University. And I'm talking with Tamara McGinnis, professor at Corban University and director of Good Wives. Welcome to KMUZ Theater Talk, Tamara.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Or I should say, welcome back. You're a frequent guest.
Yes.
Well, it's good to speak with you again. Louisa May Alcott's Good Wives is not too familiar to me. Little
Yes.
Women is. Tell me a little bit about Peter Clapham's version of this for the stage and what brought you to it.
Actually, as you mentioned, many people are really familiar with Little Women. And if you watched a movie titled Little Women, the odds are that you also have seen the content of Good Wives, because most of the movies have conflated the two novels and have just made the whole story be from when the March girls are young all the way to the time that they get married and have their career opportunities, etc. So a lot of people are really familiar with the content in this script, but they have had no idea that that's not just called Little Women. And many of the modern published books that are titled Little Women, if you open them up, it will oftentimes say Little Women Part 1 and then Little Women Part 2. And the Little Women Part 2 is actually the Good Wives novel that she wrote as a follow-up. And apparently, after Little Women was published, a lot of girls wrote to Alcott saying, "Well, what happens to these girls when they grow up and they get married?" And her publisher, realizing that this was already a built-in audience and that that would sell, persuaded her, "You need to write a book that follows up on this." So Good Wives picks up 3 years after Little Women had concluded. It opens with the marriage of Meg and John, and then it goes from there. And it traces all of the girls and the decisions that they have to make as they move into adulthood. And I don't really want to give a spoiler, so I'm not going to tell you the specific things that they face, but the odds are most people who come to watch this will have already read or watched enough to know what happens to these women after they grow up.
Obviously, more adult issues than
Yes.
teen issues in this one.
Yes.
When you get
It's,
married, when you're thinking about your career,
yeah.
when you're doing things like traveling in Europe and
Mhm.
all that sort of thing. Is that what this play aims at mostly?
Yes, it's entirely about growing into adulthood and all of the challenges and opportunities that that brings, and about facing challenges personally and overcoming them, but also facing challenges within a loving community. It is still very entrenched in the March family. So this show actually has one set, and everything happens in the parlor of the March home. So it continues that tradition of Little Women, where while it is about them going out, we see it from the eyes of how that going out has affected the family and how having that stability of the family to come back to helps to both anchor and encourage and motivate and console and comfort these girls as they continue to come back and tell their adventures and tell their choices and decisions, etc. And it is arranged by a man named Peter Clapham, which I don't think very many people have heard of. I suspect that he is an English author, and he puts an introduction to the play script that tells all the here's how you could help make this play happen. Here are the things that we did that worked well. Here are some things to avoid, etc. And I absolutely love the last paragraph of his introduction. I would like to read you what he says.
Sure, go ahead.
I feel that there is little to be gained by using an American accent. Frequently, these can be atrocious, and their very artificiality could prove distracting to an audience. In the original production, we played it straight, and in discussing it afterwards with numerous Alcott devotees, I could not find one who thought it in any way amiss for us to do so.
So so none of this use guys stuff, right?
Do not speak in an American accent. So it was
That's
very definitely played with British accents.
mhm.
They didn't think they had an accent, apparently.
Well, there you go.
We will be doing it in an American accent, just as an FYI.
Well, well, it will probably ring more true to the audience here across the pond.
I suspect, yes.
So, Little Women was a real hit with younger readers,
Yes.
especially young girls. And when you talk about this play addressing what happens when they get a little older and they're approaching marriage, is this still a young reader's kind of setting? Or, I mean, is this still mostly attractive to younger readers, younger theater goers than it is an older audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question.
The reason that I ask that question is that, you see so many productions of Little Women done by much younger actors, which I think is great. It's a theatrical piece that is aimed at their age group, that depicts the problems and issues that younger girls face and think about, the longing that they have. Now you're working with college students
Mhm.
who are transitioning to the more serious world of adulthood.
Yes.
And how does this work for your college actors?
First of all, I wouldn't really say that it's aimed at real young audience members. So if I were bringing kids to this, I probably would start maybe fifth or sixth grade. And it's not because there's anything inappropriate in it or that they would be bothered by it. I think that the younger kids might just be bored to death by it. It is dealing with slightly more adult topics. It's talking about, do I get married? Do I not get married? How do I decide who I marry? Do I go and take opportunities that will advance my career, or do I make other choices? And they experience health problems and they have adventures abroad and they begin to question things about what is a friendship, what's the difference between a friendship and the kind of relationship that would lead you to marriage. So things that, a second grader is not really that interested in, but for young adults, this is right where they are.
So you're talking about like middle school and older, right?
Yes, middle school because they're becoming aware of these things, not really because they're dealing with them. But many fairy tales and many like Disney movies deal with their characters moving into what happens after they begin to grow up. And that appeals to fifth through high school. So I think this one will have the same kind of appeal for that age group. But I think that it really resonates with the age that my actors actually are, and that is college, that they are literally facing all of these kinds of decisions that the characters in this show are facing. And the interesting thing is, when I cast the show and we did our first read through, after we were done, I was asking my actors, so tell me, what's your first impression? And a couple of them said, well, when I heard that it was called Good Wives and it was about getting married and that kind of stuff, I was thinking this maybe won't be that interesting. But after the read through, I'm really excited about this. And a couple of them even began to talk about how the things that the characters in this show are facing, they felt like, wow, it was written quite a long time ago, but I mean, I feel like it applies to where I am right now, and it's helping me to think through some of the things that I am facing.
Tell me a little bit about what your actors are really digging into.
Well, I'll tell you, the hardest thing for them is this is a generation that didn't have televisions, radios for entertainment. They mostly just sat in the parlor and talked or did outdoor stuff. And for a group of people who are used to communicating in short blurbs and where things like Instagram, where it's just a quick touch base with people, they're not really used to extended conversations. And this book is about people talking to people
Hmm.
about significant things, about everyday things. They talked all the time.
It's a
They,
novel idea.
it is conversation in relationship. So they're finding that really challenging. And in some ways, and this is going to sound a little judgmental, but in some ways, it's like they are relearning how to have a conversation and how to find themselves interested in just conversation. That has been both a challenge and a beautiful thing already. There is a lot of talking. That doesn't mean that we aren't finding ways to incorporate movement, and it doesn't mean that there isn't dynamic activity going on at the same time. But it is a play that was written in a period very different from ours. It was a very simple, time when it comes to technology, but they faced the same kind of challenges that we do. They were just as human, just as typical and normal as we are, as far as it's all about how we make our decisions. It's all about the people that we decide to invite into our lives. It's all about how we relate to those people. It's about how we decide what kind of person we're going to become by the choices that we make along the way. So it deals with timeless themes, and yet it does so in a way that's really hopeful.
So you really got me to thinking about this. You know, we live in a different world right now.
Mhm.
Obviously, the media is a really big part of young people's lives. It's constant. The phone is always with them.
Yes.
Do you find yourself changing how you are directing plays, how you are running rehearsals for kids that are really tied more to media than to conversation? Because a play would not be a play without conversation between actors, between between the characters on the stage.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily doing things differently, but I am finding that it takes a lot longer than it used to, because
Mhm.
things that you could have just assumed people knew how to do, they don't necessarily know anymore. And it's just basic stuff, like even that when you're having a conversation, you vary your tone, you vary the pitch, you vary the rate, you vary the intensity, you vary your emphasis. I mean, even 15 years ago, I didn't really have to work on that much with my actors. And now, because a lot of their conversations, they don't really have to pay attention to that if you're putting it in text, whether you're emailing or texting or whatever. So, for many of them to have an extended conversation where you have to be thinking about all of those things with your voice, and then you have to figure out, oh, the people are seeing me as well as hearing me. And so, coaching them about your body has to be congruent with what you're saying if you genuinely are authentic about this message. Now, sometimes characters are supposed to say things, but they don't really mean them. And so their body then is supposed to show, I don't really mean this. But when everything is supposed to be communicating the same thing, they haven't had as much practice at that as previous generations. And that's not bad, it just is.
That's really fascinating because when I look at text or, instant messaging, that sort of thing, you can't tell the tone from the way people are writing their messages. So, sometimes it kind of leaves me scratching my head. Is this person happy about what they're saying? Are
Mhm.
they confused? Are they coming at me in some way? I don't know. So I have
Yeah.
to interpret that as being really neutral. So are you talking about young actors being more neutral on stage as opposed to using their bodies and voices?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
I interview a lot of younger actors here on KMUZ Theatre Talk, and what I found is that at the beginning of the interview, when I ask a question of a younger actor, I'll get a very short answer. So you're
Hmm.
right on with that. And
Yeah.
as the interview goes on and as other people join the conversation, and I don't stick with interviewing one person at a time. I'm interviewing a group of people. And so when the younger actors get the idea that this is a conversation and I ask them questions later in the interview, I'll start to get longer answers and I'll be able to ask a follow-up question and let them dig in a little bit more as they get more comfortable.
Hmm.
Are you finding the same experience in directing younger actors as well?
I would say so, yes. And probably the only caveat to that would be it's easy for them to kind of remember how to do that on a personal level, but then to apply it to text where these people are speaking in a slightly older way of speaking. This isn't
Mhm.
Shakespeare or anything. We're not talking Middle English, but it is a more formal style of communication.
Yeah, we're talking a couple hundred years ago, right?
Yes. And so it's kind of foreign. It's far more formal than what they are used to. And so while I can get them to begin expressing themselves in a more animated way in their own conversation, it is a bit of a struggle to say, okay, you have to take this way of speaking that is unfamiliar to you and take all this stuff that you are doing now in your regular conversation and infuse it into this other more formal style. And that's a little challenging. It's taking much longer than what I thought it would. They're getting it, but it's just a slower process than what I had anticipated.
This has been a fascinating conversation. Let's turn to the content of the play here. You have a cast of 8 female characters and 5 male characters. Tell me a little bit about each of them and the role they play in this show.
Sure. We have the March family, who is mostly central to this whole show, just like they were central to the Little Women's book. And the oldest daughter is Meg. And in this particular version, she is preparing for her wedding. And then we see her married and have children. And then we see how that works out for her and her husband. Joe, who for many people is their favorite character, is really interested in writing, just like she was when she was younger. And she begins to pursue writing and learns a lot of things about what it is to be a writer and the difficulties that come from people saying one thing about your piece and then people saying the exact opposite thing about your piece. And who do you trust? And how do you know what's right and what isn't right? And then she is basically faced with, do I want to just do a career and be single the rest of my life? Or am I interested in something that will put me in a romantic relationship? And then Beth, who is next in line, struggles with her health in the course of this show. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And Amy gets an opportunity to travel, and she's an artist, and she gets to really develop her art. And that brings a whole different perspective to her life. And then she gets romantically involved with someone. And then Mr. and Mrs. March don't figure real huge in this story. You do get to see how they interact with their daughters and how, even though their daughters are married, they are still the thing that provides this stability and this place that they can come back to and sometimes just be there, not even necessarily ask opinions or ask for help, but just knowing that you can come to someone who loves you, who knows you, and who's willing to sit with you through the things that you're going through, and sometimes give a little bit of advice. And then you have also Aunt March, who is a bit of a curmudgeon, and she's probably the humorous figure in this play, I would say. She has a good heart, but she's like a porcupine, that she's very sharp on the outside.
A good character part, in other words.
Yes, it is. It's a lot of fun to play. And then Laurie, who is the next door neighbor, the boy, and he is growing into manhood. And while you don't really see his progress as much as you do the girls, you see how his progress affects the girls. And then Mr. Lawrence, who has taken Laurie under his wing because Laurie's parents died. He shows up a couple times, but he's very much just a supportive background kind of character. And then a really important man, Professor Bayer, who shows up close to the end of the show. And he is someone who has really spoken into Joe's life and helped her figure out, how do I write well? And how do I take what I already have and continue adding to it, adding to my skills? And how do I begin to write real stuff, not just fantasy, imaginative stuff? So those are the primary characters in the show, and watching them relate to one another is interesting, fascinating, and enjoyable.
Tell me what you hope audiences are going to take away from this performance.
I actually had not intended on doing this show. There were 2 others that I really wanted to do, but I just felt like it wasn't the right time. And when I'm selecting shows for the season, I'm usually looking at what's going on in our world and saying, what do I think would speak best into this climate right now? And we've come out of a fairly difficult time as far as the country goes, just with the election and having people on both sides. It feels like there weren't very many people who were just in the middle. I don't really care. People seem to have very strong opinions, which makes for a lot of arguing and issues. And this is a story of how do you survive difficulties, things that could drive a family apart. How do you still continue to care for one another? How do you still continue to respect and honor one another, even when people are making decisions and doing things that you don't like? And I just felt like it's a good story for our audiences to come, and I feel like it's a comfort.
It's something we need these days, right?
Yeah, I might compare it to, you know, how you have certain foods that when you're just tired or frustrated, you have a food that when you eat it, it just, you feel relaxed and okay, I can do this again. Comfort food. I
Hmm.
think this play is comfort food for the soul.
That's beautiful. I love that.
And I think audiences will leave encouraged and maybe even a little bit challenged that maybe part of our issue is we don't really know how to talk to one another. We can yell at each other and we can assert our opinions and ideas, but do we listen? Do we care? Do we spend time genuinely trying to connect to the person rather than just labeling them with a label and putting them in a box?
You can't just walk away from a conversation. That's my take
Yes.
on today's world, is that too many people are just, shouting and walking away.
Yes. Yep. And all of the characters are committed to loving each other, caring for each other, staying together regardless, even though some pretty hard things come up, things that could have split the family, but they choose not to. And they keep on talking and they keep on connecting. And I do feel that this piece is quintessentially American, which I like. And it's both satisfyingly charming, but also historically significant. And even though it's a period piece, which you kind of think, well, that's the way it was back then, I also feel that it is astonishingly applicable and current for us now. So that's why I chose it.
Louisa May Alcott wrote a great book called Little Women, and then she wrote part two called Good Wives. And the stage version of Good Wives is playing at Corban University from March 6th through 16th. And you can learn more about it by going to corban.edu and searching for theater events. It'll take you right to the page that has all the great information and a link to how to purchase tickets. And I've been talking with director Tamara McGinnis about this show. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much, Tamara, for coming once again to be a guest here on KMUZ Theater Talk.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you liked that conversation with Tamara McGinnis as much as I did. This kind of insight is what I aim to bring you here at KMUZ Theater Talk when we go behind the curtain. But now it's time to wrap up today's KMUZ Theater Talk program. So thank you for listening. KMUZ Theater Talk is proud to partner with the Mid-Valley Theater Network and with Press Play Salem. This week, I want to give a big thank you to all our listeners who donated to the KMUZ Winter Pledge Drive. Your generous support helps keep KMUZ Theater Talk and the rest of KMUZ's great community radio programs coming your way. And if you haven't heard the big news yet about KMUZ, we're happy to say that our radio station operations are moving to a new location in Salem. Our move should be complete soon, and we'll be sharing studio space with Capital Community Media on Trade Street at the south end of downtown. You'll still be enjoying KMUZ's regular community radio music and information programs like KMUZ Theater Talk, along with our newest programs in our schedule from PRX, the Public Radio Exchange. I know you're a fan of KMUZ Theater Talk, but do take a listen to our other great radio programs at 100.7 FM and on your smart speaker. I'm sure you'll find even more to like at KMUZ FM. KMUZ Theater Talk comes your way at 9 a.m. the first and third Friday of the month on KMUZ Community Radio at 100.7 and 88.5 FM. Also on KMWV FM Dallas at 98.3 HD2 and streaming worldwide at kmuz.org and on the KMUZ mobile app. And you can always listen to any of our KMUZ Theater Talk episodes anytime, wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be back on March 4th with a brand new KMUZ Theater Talk program. Meanwhile, see our KMUZ Theater Talk Facebook page for news and updates about live theater in the Mid-Willamette Valley. And remember that next Friday at 9 a.m. on KMUZ 100.7 FM, you can hear Talking About Art with Joel Zack. Until next time, I'll see you in the front row.